Our lesson is titled Isaiah 58 Fasting. I'm reading from Isaiah chapter 58 as I looked at it this morning. And a lot of things there really came home to me as I saw the condition of our people reflected in Isaiah 58, and the word about fasting really stood out to me. I read this many times from a child. This was used to teach fasting in the Christian church for many, many years. Listen to what it says here, reading from Isaiah 58, starting from verse 3. I'll read a couple verses and then I'll get over to Isaiah 61. And it says here from verse 3, "Wherefore have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Wherefore have we afflicted our soul, and thou takest no knowledge? Behold, in the day of your fast ye find pleasure, and exact all your labors. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. Ye shall not fast as ye do this day, to make your voice be heard on high. Is it such a fast that I have chosen, a day for a man to afflict his soul? Is it to bow down his head as a bulrush, and to spread sackcloth and ashes under him? Wilt thou call this a fast, and an acceptable day to the Lord?" And I remember in the Christian church, sometimes Christians would fast to hurt somebody else, like maybe a friend that they weren't getting along with, or their neighbor, somebody who they counted as their enemy, or somebody who was fighting against them, or fasting to smite that person or their boss or something. It's funny that, like they were praying dangerous prayers as well with the fasting. And it's funny that when I came over into the Hebrew Israelite religion, that I noted that while I was looking for some difference, and they told me this was the way, this is your identity, you're an Israelite, this is different and so on, that they were doing the same kind of stuff as well, like the other things they do similar to the Christians, like baptizing and other things, right? But Israelites were fasting and praying to deal with some grievances that they have with other Israelites or other camps and other camp leaders. Like some camps, even the leaders in some cases, but not always the leaders, were teaching about spiritually fighting the other leaders in the other camps, and they were praying that, like even when the bombs dropped from Iran or whoever else was coming to bomb America, that one of the bombs would just drop right on that other leader or that camp and so on. And that's when I knew. That was within the first year. And then I went another year, second year, but at least from the first year, I thought that's strange. And by the time the second year came, I just no, this, something's wrong. That's when I really knew that something was wrong with this Israelite stuff. It could not be of God. Because, can you imagine being in the Christian church and one pastor is fasting and praying that when Iran or somebody drops a bomb on America, that one of those missiles would drop right on the head of the pastor who's in the pulpit at the other church across town, preaching the Sunday morning message, while he's trying to preach to get sinners saved, and you want the missile to drop on him and bomb him. Alright? So when you look at Israelites doing that, I said, no, something is wrong. So I started to rethink all kinds of things, and up to this point it has led me here today. And I'm realizing that we're thinking these things because there's just an aggression and dissatisfaction and a hatred among our people. We've just been so destroyed, and the things out of the Bible really aren't helping us when we approach it the way that it has been given to us, about your salvation and so on, in the traditional ways that salvation has been taught from the Bible. But I'm finding now that if you are going to use the Bible like you use any other religious book or any other kind of book, you have to think different things about it, because the whole Bible it's coming clear to me these days. It's just a book made of the history and lifestyle of the African people. The whole system there is African. The teachings, the religion, the spiritual teachings and rituals and so on. It's all based on African stuff. The locations, the places in the book, it's all African stuff. Right? And so you have to understand that the core of the Bible is African. And so once you understand that, you're just looking for the core ideas in the book. But the other peripheral stuff, the fluff, you just have to kind of disregard those. Just try to get to the core of it and try to find yourself and find your way. As our people now under threat everywhere on earth, in Africa as well as other places that we are in the Americas and so on, we're under threat of extinction and so on. And everybody, it's like it's a bad situation. And so you got to try to find the core in the book that has been given to you by people who had you in slavery, and by people who really, in large part, don't mean you any good. Right? In terms of your progress and so on. And you can only make enough progress to benefit them, to serve them. But you will still be squashed, put down on, because somebody else wants to keep you down so that you serve them. But at the core of the book, you'll find the real, it's a central part of the story. And so this whole Israelite identity that you've been given with the Bible is just like a story made about the Africans, their locations in Africa, and their history and their spiritual system and so on. It's just a movie. Israelite Bible stuff is just a movie kind of story kind of thing. Just like a movie can be made now about the bombing of the World Trade Center, or a movie made about World War II, or a movie made about Hitler, or a movie made about a flood, or a movie made about anything coming to the Americas and so on. It's just a movie. And so at the core of the movie, now, the Hollywood script, for example, might have the real central part that the story is built around, like the historical happening. But then a lot of fluff is added as embellishment to help build up a more full-bodied story to make a movie out of. But the core of it is the bombing of the World Trade Center, and then you might have like some firefighters there and so on, and then you'll have a love story in it, and children trying to find their father, or a wife trying to find her husband who may have been in the World Trade Center or one of the buildings surrounding it that day, and so on, and try to find, that person. So it is that with the Bible, the core of it is African, and the African spiritual teachings and so on. But a lot of embellishments were placed around it and made, such as you get like these tribes of Judah and Israel, and so on, Ephraim, and the different tribes and the different stuff that they went on with. And how they should come into their temples and do this and wash and do whatever. All that stuff. And they're coming out of Egypt and so on. It's just embellishment put around an African system to make a full-bodied movie or story. And once the movie is done, or the story is called the Bible. But you got to get to the core and see what it is. And so, when you look at this story now, it's telling you about fasting. You fast for strife and basically for wickedness. Is this the fast that I have commanded you? And when you look at the fast, you have to think of the fast not in the regular way, because I've told you in the past, you got to try to flip things in your mind. Because they're flipping things to tell you it is not about Africa, it is about the Israelite, the Bible. But no, you got to flip it. So the fast now, when you look at that differently, you think that fast is stop eating food, because the Most High is here saying you're abstaining from food and so on. So you would see fasting in the usual way of trying to abstain from food to do something personal for you, to get some personal benefit or gain, to get an answer from the Lord. We always talk about fasting to get an answer from God, or for healing or a breakthrough. So, but it is something, a lot of times, it is something personal. Not always, because sometimes you can fast for somebody else, or, but a lot of times you're fasting for personal inner growth or personal breakthrough, personal connection with God, personal well-being that has something to do with some blessing from God and growth from God. But if you look at that spiritual thing about fasting, you can look at it as something spiritual that you are doing, something inner for yourself. But he's saying, are you trying to still do something deep for yourself? Is this the spiritual path I want you to walk, to fast for yourself? Or is this a spiritual path that I want you to walk in life, to do something for yourself, to work and make as much money as you can for yourself, like the heathen do, to build up, each of them building up their own house and so on, and then eventually, they're like, oh, look at all I've got. But it's more thinking of, instead of fasting or doing something for yourself, something deep for yourself, why don't you do something deep for your African brother or sister, where that deepness results in the end, over time, because nothing's going to happen in one day, but over time, that deepness, because you are thinking not of something deep happening for yourself, growth only for yourself, but you are approaching that deep spiritual path or that deep path in life, whatever it is you're doing, to happen for all African brothers and sisters across the earth, whether they're in Africa or elsewhere in the Americas or any place else. And so the fasting in Isaiah 58 is more like you're doing something for yourself. Is this a fast that I've commanded? Why don't you go and turn down, when you turn down your plate, go and give something to the person on the street, like the stuff would be going on, saying, like in verse 6, is not this the fast that I have chosen, to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free and break the yoke, and so on? Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry? So instead of doing that fasting for yourself to get some spiritual blessing or growth or breakthrough for yourself, he's saying, let that fast be something that you do to benefit others, not just yourself. And so when the African begins to understand their identity and their history on earth, once you learn that again, you are more thinking now wide, not just for yourself, so that everything that you do now in this life, while you're still going to try to take care of your needs, person and so on, but what you do should have a more worldwide impact for all your brothers and sisters everywhere, whether they are here or in Africa or any place else. So that by cooperating together as one great people all across the earth, whether you're in Africa or not, you are cooperating to loose the bands of wickedness that has been upon your people, keep your people divided. Some time ago, I was going to look it up again to refresh myself, but I forgot. But I remember learning, and many of you would have heard this, in the Israelite movements, of some document talking about how I think CIA or FBI had set up something where they were trying to keep African Americans divided or separated from, so that they do not reconnect with Africans in Africa. As if they know that if these two groups reconnect, something bigger will happen, something uncontrollable. So you see, you're fasting, or if you replace fasting in your mind with something different than the regular abstaining from food, but think of fasting as a spiritual thing that you're doing, some spiritual directive that is not the turning down or the turning over of your plate to not eat anymore, but the turning down of your ideas about life that you have been cultured to think. Turn it down so that you can eat from an African plate of ideas, where before we were destroyed, we were one. Ubuntu. So we were just one, like a whole people flowing together, even from most ancient times, before we even learned to build things, before we learned to deal with stone and so on, the very, very ancient ones. when we were what they call the Adamites. Today they would say that based on the Bible, right? So the very first peoples, before we got into agriculture and anything else, we just existed and knew, hey, we don't know what or who made us and placed us here, but we opened our eyes and we are. We didn't even call ourselves Africans at that time. We didn't even start exploring it and making ships as yet. We didn't learn those things yet. We didn't figure out to sit on logs and move on water until we made boats out of it and traveled over to the Americas and every places that scientists and archaeologists and historians and so on have dug and found these things. I have no reason to disbelieve them. So I understand that the Africans learned all these things and made ships and so on and came to the Americas and other places. That's just where I'm at from what I've learned. So before we even found out all those things, we were just one people. And we were together. So nobody was selfish like with the selfish fast. You were not selfish with selfish ideas. I'm going out only to work my job just to pay my bills so I don't lose my house at the end of the month. But we were more living as one then. So turn over those ideas of only living for yourself now, because the system of oppression has kept you where you must only work for yourself and do for yourself now so you can pay for an education for your children alone that live in your house now. But you must work and move forward to think of all of your people all over the earth, because we are all under oppression and scattered. That's how you must think. Turn down the plate of selfishness, of one-sided thinking of fasting, of one-sided, and think of a more worldwide system for all of us, of our people who are scattered in different countries, where we were not originally placed in those countries on slave ships, but originally we went with our very ancient forefathers as Africans and ventured out into different lands to explore, so for exploration, and eventually as whatever earth catastrophes might have happened, and then later slavers might have trapped us in those areas and then brought a few others in those areas, or many others, whatever the case is. But obviously from the history, we went there, and the scientific finds, we went there to those lands at first and built up other empires there before we were destroyed or before we were set back by natural disasters. So as we grew after those natural disasters and so on, then we were conquered later on. And then a lot of lies were told to embellish in the story some strangeness about our history. So you have to turn down the fasting plate of those newer ideas about our past in order to see ourselves globally again. I just remember the story that we were taught in the Israelite movements, and I'm not knocking the Israelite brothers for this now, but I'm just saying, upon searching and searching, I found a little bit more stuff about this Ouida place where they said that the Israelites fled from Jerusalem, from the Romans, and eventually went into a place in Africa called Ouida. Now, a few months ago, I found this YouTube channel with this great brother running his channel called The Search for Uhuru. And there is one video he did, I don't remember the title of it, so I can't help you with that right now. But he was talking to this people in this place called Ouida, that Israelites taught that Ouida means Judah. But the name just kind of changed. So it was a tribe of Judah, and they were kind of playing with the words and showing this is Judah. It says Ouida, but it became from Judah, from Yehuda and Judah and so on, it became Ouida over time. But they are the people, and that those are the people from the tribe of Judah that fled there, or the kingdom of Judah. So when the African brother now answered the question, is this Ouida? Because Israelites say this is the tribe of Judah now called Ouida. And I guess probably the name, they were defeated and the name changed a few centuries ago, something like that. The Africans there are telling the brother, no, this was never Judah. We were never Israelites that were Judah and the name changed, or Yehuda and the name changed over time. He says, no, we were never. Now, let's not get silly. Well, that one brother didn't know. I mean, there were other people there. You mean nobody? Like, you might not know something in your city, but somebody else across the street or downtown might know it about your city, or it's going to be in a book somewhere. So these people have been living there forever, or in that spot thousands of years or however long. But basically, forever also, even from the Hebrew, can mean just a very, 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 like an exceeding long time. So whether they were there from the start of time or just a very, 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 very long time, he's trying to let the brother know in the search for Huru, look up the channel, that no, we're not no Israelites from the tribe of Judah. So can you imagine that? The Most High is going to keep a light always in Judah for his servant David's sake. And the people there in Judah don't even know that, in Ueda don't even know that they are from Judah. How will you just forget that you are from the tribe and the kingdom of David? The tribe of David, the lineage of David. So you see, this whole Israelite stuff is strange, because it seems we were taught this stuff about Judah and Ephraim, or the two kingdoms and so on, and about being Israelites by people who, it seems to me, by people who conquered us, by people who are working magic to destroy us and to take us over. So you got to turn the plate over of that new teaching, that new spiritual teaching, the fasting. Turn over the plate and go search, reconnect with your people and with the ancient knowledge. No wonder Jeremiah 17:4 says you have been disconnected from your heritage, which also basically means your lineage, your history, your past, and so on. And search, right? You need to search it. So he says no. So when you look at that now, you see that really our people have been destroyed by the different ideas of the identity that we should have about ourselves. We've been taught a different knowledge about our identity. But as you look into it deeper and deeper, you understand that no. And I remember this brother from the, I don't quite remember exactly, so I won't call his name for his channel. But the person was saying, though, that they also did their own search, and there was no tribe or kingdom of Judah in this place called Ueda. So there is some mistake there. And they showed maps and history and so on for that place, and that there was never a tribe of Judah that fled from Jerusalem in the time of the Romans into the place that we are now identifying as Ueda. So something is strange right there. But it's the African that has been destroyed, and we have been, especially here in the Americas as well, we have been so destroyed with different kinds of knowledge about our past. So we teach all kinds of stuff, and the religion that tells you that you are an Israelite destroys you further. It really does. So turn over the plate of that regular fasting, or turn over the plate, of that regular fasting, to go outside and give to the poor and the destitute and so on, is what the Most High is saying. Well, I'm telling you, think of that fasting as something that you need to turn over. Turn over the plate of knowledge that you've been eating from since you've been colonized and destroyed. Turn over that plate of knowledge that you've been eating on, and eat from the knowledge of the past by reconnecting with your people, listening to your own black historians who have dug into the past and are uncovering more information that you were not taught in the regular school system. Turn over that plate. Fast from that kind of knowledge, new knowledge that you've been given, to go and eat from the plate of other deeper Nile Valley knowledge and so on. To realize that before there was an Israelite kingdom, there were other kingdoms of Africa. We know the regular kingdom of Egypt, right? But there were other kingdoms in Africa as well. So look at that. And these kingdoms were there before there was anything called an Israelite kingdom. Now, let's run over now to Isaiah chapter 61. And verse In verse 1, he says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He has anointed me to preach and so on. Preach the gospel, good tidings and so on. Then starting at verse 2 and going down, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. And they're teaching us, because this is the Israelite that's in mourning because they've been without a king and the priest and so on for many days and so on. Now Africa is trying to unite, trying to get Africa just to be one whole empire, one whole government, just ruling over Africa. And eventually in time that's going to affect blacks all over the earth when that day actually happens. Right? And you see what's going on in South Africa now, and like Africans are just coming together. And even in America, you see Africans and down in Jamaica and so on, and it's like we're starting to think sometimes we're fighting with each other. You see them fighting online and cussing out each other, and they're hating and they're talking about they're threatening each other and so on because somebody did some live stream and said this and that and whatever. But the reality is that while some of those things sound really bad, you notice that when somebody threatens the next person on their podcast or their YouTube live stream that they're going to kill them and so on, and the next person gives them their address, 5 years later, they still haven't shown up at the address to kill the person. Because inside of us, we are not looking for any more death, really. Although people fight and kill each other sometime on the street for this, that, and the other. When you see people teaching online and try to dig up our past, and some are on the side of Israelites, and some are on the side of Kemet, and some are on the side of meditation and chakras and whatever. We're really looking for life. We're looking for a way out of the predicament that we find ourselves in. That's what it really comes down to. We're looking for knowledge and teaching and sharing with each other to change our situation for the better, because we're under siege all over the earth. We're under siege. One country, one of these white countries, can pick up their army and go travel across the waters or go into another land and go and fight to defend and save whoever they say they're defending, one of their allies, one of their people. Blacks in general can't just pick up that, because pick up their army and go to the next country, because most times we don't have our own armies. Like in Africa, they got armies, but like in America and Canada and Jamaica, like we don't really have our armies that can do all that kind of stuff. We don't. But what we have is our word. We don't have missiles and bombs that can drop stuff and try to free ourselves because we were enslaved and kept on plantations and so on. We don't have that kind of stuff. But what we have is our word. And that's why you find when we're teaching online, it looks like we hate each other. The Israelites hate the Kemet people and the Kemet hate. But that's not what's happening. And so an enemy can look at that and make it look bad. What you have to understand is that your people are looking for ways. And the power of the bombs that we don't have, that power is inside our word. Because while we don't have the missiles, what we have is our word. The same word that we use from super ancient times to create pyramids and to create and utilize the mysteries and so on, and to create languages and so on, and to do all kinds of great buildings and discoveries that we did, and to create the first ships and so on from ancient times, and whatever else we did. What we have is our word. And it is essential to how we operate, how we think, and so on. And we're just coming back into a time now, more than we've done for past 300 years. We're coming back to a time where we understand that the main power is in our word. The main power is not in guns and bombs, because we don't have those anyway. Our power is in our word. So we are going to rise, not based on bombs that we have, missiles that we have, missiles and guns that we have, because we don't have those. We're going to rise based on a word that is inside of us. So somebody needs to prophesy to you, and so while you prophesy to them, they're prophesying back to you by what they searched and found out. And so you think that because they found out through their research something that sounds different from yours, you just want to kill them, or you want to harm them, or you want to strike down their channel. And so it's like a war, but it's not the war of dropping bombs or shooting. It's more dropping bombs with your words, with your knowledge, with your information, with the points, with how you describe this or that you found out in a book. So our real power is in our words as we teach. That's how you know we're gonna rise again in the end. All this fear stuff about bombs and war and nuclear war, that's just fear tactics. Earth is actually designed to support life, not death and extinction. That's why I find it really strange, all the story they tell us about the earth was wiped out in some flood 50 million years and so on. I really wonder, I haven't yet begun to look into that stuff, but I hear it every now and then come up, and I really wonder how true that is. Because why would the earth that is designed to let trees come out of the ground mysteriously, to provide fruit and so on, and to let people live and so on and survive, just destroy? Even your body doesn't just normally die until something happens to it. And most of what is happening to our bodies to make us die or get sick is from the food we're eating that's not well. So if we were to get back to a time when we can eat well, would we not live longer or maybe forever? Just like even Genesis tells you that once they ate the wrong fruit that they died, as if it wants you to think that if they did not do that, they would live, because there was a tree of life. So the original thought about life and destruction in the Torah itself is letting you know that doing things the proper, good way on earth will let you live, because life, earth, existence was designed for life to go on. So I really wonder how likely it is that there were global, you see, because when they tell you 50 million years ago, 2 million years ago, or 5,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, there was global flood that killed everybody on earth. How are we still here? What, did we come from another planet and keep populating this every time a global flood wiped out everybody? Well, if we're coming from another planet, I would imagine we're smarter, because normally we think if somebody's coming in a spaceship from another planet, like some strange Anunnaki, that they're really smart because they're technologically advanced, from where we are, from our perspective. So why would those people from Anunnaki, or so, from some foreign planet or elsewhere, some other galaxy, see Earth getting destroyed by global floods, so-called global, because I don't believe in this global stuff anymore, although I'm still looking into it. See this place keep being destroyed over and over again, and still built here, so that all their efforts will be destroyed all over again when another global flood comes. You see, those Anunnakis would be idiots. If I was Anunnaki and I see this happening here, every time I build something on Earth, flood come and just destroy everything, I'll say, this is a wasteful planet. Its nature is designed to kill and to destroy and to annihilate. So I'm going to look for another galaxy or another planet. So I find it really odd that Earth keeps destroying all the people on the Earth, but people still go on living. Well, where did we come from? It destroys, it wipes out everything, but still the trees keep going. And every time, you notice when even people die, or animals die, or trees die, all the remains go back into the atmosphere and into the earth, into the soil. Even bones, if left long enough, will just disintegrate. It will just go away if left long enough. But first, the muscles and the flesh would just dissolve away into the soil and so on. So what that's telling me is that if left long enough, even a dead body will be hidden by the earth as it gets absorbed back into the soil. So earth will show the living tree, continue to show it, or show living people on it and so on, and living animals. But when something dies, earth tries to hide it by taking it back into itself, into its soil. Earth tries to hide destruction. It tries to get rid of it, as if earth itself, existence itself, believes in life, believes in things being perpetual, believes in an ongoing cycle of motion, believes in life, existence. Earth does not believe in fear and believe in annihilation. So I find it strange that these floods keep wiping out everybody, yet we're still here. It would more seem to me that it did not destroy everyone, because nobody can prove to me that Anunnaki are coming from other galaxies. So if we're still here, it's because we never got destroyed in a worldwide flood or some worldwide catastrophe. Because Earth believes in longevity, in keeping you going. That's why, again, the Torah said, eat from this kind of tree and you will live. But if you eat from the wrong thing, you will die. Because Earth believes in living, in going on. So all this stuff about the wars and nuclear and so on and not enough food in the planet, it's just fear tactics, and they're spraying the skies and blocking the sun so the greeneries and the fruits and so on that we need to eat can grow well and healthy enough, so we'll eventually not get enough nutrients for our body and so on. That's how you die. It's not because Earth itself does not believe in longevity. It's because somebody else doing this stuff does not believe in that. But the system of life and existence itself believes in longevity, believes in eternity. And he will put eternity in their hearts, the Torah says. Because I would think you should be eternal. That's why now I am of the view that there really is no God. I'm not going to develop it here right now, but I'm looking into it still. I don't believe in this God called Yahweh or Jehovah that created us. Now, there could be some kind of God or being that we call God that created us, but he has to prove himself to me first. It might more be that we are the ones who are eternal, that the earth is the one that's eternal. You're saying we're eternal, brother? No, Yahweh is eternal. Well, if you can believe that Yahweh is eternal, Yahweh, the self-existent one, the eternal one, if he can be eternal, why can't a man be eternal? Why can't a woman be eternal? Why can't trees be eternal? Why can't the earth be eternal? So that as God never came into existence at any point, so he is without beginning and without end. Humanity is eternal because humanity is without beginning and without end. So that they can say, we don't really know the start of man. Some people say we've been here 100,000 years, 200,000 years, some say 5 million years, some say billions of years. We don't know. All kinds of dates being put on it. Why? Because if we are eternal, they cannot tie it down to a date. So they just say, we don't know. And so you find a model and you stick with it and say, this is the one I believe in. When the reality may just be that we are eternal. We always have been. If God always could have been, why is it that man always could not have been as well? The trees could have been eternal so that they're always here. They have always been here to support the eternal humans who were always here and always needed to eat the fruit from them. The earth could be the one that's eternal as opposed to God being eternal, so that the earth never even got created because there may have never been a creator, but the earth was just always eternal. Well, somebody had to create the earth. Look at all the scientific discoveries and so on and proof. But somebody always comes with something else that proves that that other proof is not correct. So who knows? It all comes down to a belief. So if God can be eternal and create this earth, why can't it be the truth as well, since nobody can prove these things? That is all right for somebody else to believe that the earth is what was eternal, so there was never a God that needed to create it, because the earth always existed, just like your God always existed, you believe. So if earth is eternal, it never needed to be created. You talk about the Big Bang. They show in science that there was proof that there was a start to the Big Bang. But you got other people who, according to them, prove that the Big Bang is not where it started. But if you tell me there was a Big Bang, let's say I give you the Big Bang and it started. What was there to bang? That means something was eternal to bang. So something was there before. Does not necessarily mean it is Yahweh or God. Because just because something, well, let me not develop that some more, but that's another lesson I'm working on. I need more time with it. But if we look here, he says now, having been destroyed, right? He says now, to proclaim the acceptable day of the Lord and so on, to appoint to them that morning Zion. The storybook is really about the African, but they made up the Zion, Israel stuff, Zion, Israel kind of thing, like I said, with the embellishments. And you say the Israelites is mourning because they're in captivity. Africans are mourning in Africa because their land has been colonized, taken over, moved in on. And Africans elsewhere in the world have been taken over as well, and somebody's ruling over them. So we are the ones who are mourning, not the Israelites. But according to the embellishments in the story, you say, well, Israel is in Africa, and we're the Israelites. No, but I'm saying it's all of us there from Africa. No matter where we live. We're the ones in mourning because we are under oppression worldwide. But he says, I'll give them beauty for ashes and the oil of joy for mourning and so on. The spirit of heaviness and so on it talks about, right? Praise for the spirit of heaviness and so on. So I'm just showing you that there could be an alternative to thinking this Israelite stuff, that maybe it's African stuff, because it was Africans who were here before there was anything called an Israelite. And those Africans fell. So you say the Israelite fell? Well, the African fell. So why can't it be the African that's in mourning, that needs to be built up again? Verse 4 from Isaiah 61, and they shall build the old wastes. So it means waste cities, waste places, and so on. They shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities of the desolations of many generations. And they're like, yeah, because we need to build we need to build up Judah again and so on, and build up the temple back again. Jerusalem, Israelites wanted to do that. You see how, not all of it, but a lot of this stuff is always so spiritualized. The building needs to be a physical temple that you need to build up. Whereas if you think that this whole stuff is about Africans who lost their way in history or were taken down and so on, eventually conquered, it's not no one single building like a temple that needs to be built. The waste places are all of the many, 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 many waste places in Africa and the other places in the world that the African went to, even in the Americas. The waste places, the cities they built from ancient times, that now you're seeing the places cut out in the rocks that they were living in and so on, or you see the many pyramids and so on. The old waste places that need to be rebuilt, as they wonder what were the pyramids for and how did they live in this city and how did they build that and do this and do that. The waste places need to be rebuilt. Now I'm sure that Africans have more waste places that need to be rebuilt than the Israelite in their small little land of Israel when you get back there, according to your belief as the Israelite. Which land originally belonged to the African? So Africans would have far more waste places that need to be rebuilt. So why, than the Israelite? So why wouldn't the scripture more apply to the African who's scattered across the earth? And they were there building these places and inhabiting and using them and so on before there was an Israelite nation. So God just comes and and says, I'm going to build up the Israelite waste places, but he doesn't care about the African. Imagine that. You start some great conglomerate, some great business, some company, and for 20 years, you don't do anything about it. You just pay the bills, you pay the hydro, you pay the taxes, you pay everything. But you don't do anything in it. You just set up the building, and the factories to go with it and so on, and you just go out on the street and hire people, or put in a newspaper advertising job. And people just come and just get a job there. And for 20 years they're in there and you don't tell them anything. You don't tell them what they need to do and so on. They're just in there. So, well, hey, nothing but a paycheck keeps coming into my account every 2 weeks. So they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs because you set up the business, you hired them, but you don't tell them what they need to be doing. You don't say anything to them. So they start doing their own thing. One just from one of the offices start running a hair salon in it. Another one start selling some food in it, cooking food, like running a little restaurant and so on. Another one start making pencils in there and selling them and shipping them out on his own, whatever. And just set up, everybody is doing their own thing inside the building. You pay all the taxes and everything like that. And you pay the government your taxes and doing. And 20 years later now, you say, I'm going to do something with this building, with this company I have. And you set up a new people that you hired off the street and say, you are the Israelites, come run this company for me called Earth. And you don't care about the people that were in there all along, occupying the place for the past 20 years. Like the Israelites who came on later on in history to get a kingdom called Israel, and the so-called creator of earth, the God, Yah, starts to deal with them, and he's going to just make them an empire, the Israelite empire. But the Africans, who did not originally call themselves Africans, of course, but they were the original people who in the embellishment of the story would be called the Adamites because they were the most ancient ones before there was an Israelite. And they were living on earth and ruling and reigning before there was an Adam and Eve story and before there was Israel and so on. They were even reigning and ruling before there was an Egyptian kingdom because Egypt came later on. So these original people of Africa were just there living on earth, exploring earth and so on. Later on, an Israel comes. And the God that supposedly made earth starts dealing with a new people called Israel, that he set up in the land that originally belonged to the African. And he doesn't talk to the African. But those same Israelites had to, according to the stories now, go on ships of Solomon with the Phoenicians and with the Africans and so on, the Hamites, to go and explore and go to America and so on, when the Africans were doing that all along before. So then the Israelite, who is the power people of God, had to learn all these things from the Hamites that get cursed out and ignored by the God who had those people here on earth first and ignored them while they built up great stuff, pyramids and everything that people still scratch their head over and set up a new people. So the wisdom and expertise in life and everything is that these people did, the most ancient people, is there, and all they built and found out and learned and so on. The Creator doesn't care about it. He ignores all of that and he sets up a new people called Israel. This new people don't have the kind of wisdom and knowledge of earth and the system of earth and the cycles and so on of nature like the ancient people had. And God ignores all the wisdom of the ancients. And we find the Israelites teaming up and learning with. At sometimes even relying on the Ethiopians and so on and Egyptians for their security and safety. And you're telling me this book isn't written about the African. But the waste places would be rebuilt when life changes, when earth changes again. Would be rebuilt by the Africans. So you have to start to think. A lot of fear tactics are used to make you feel like as a black person, life will always be this way. You'll always be down at the bottom. No. Sure, some more of us might die and so on, and they're going to come against us and so on. But you must think that above and beyond that, we're going to rise. We're going to succeed. We're going to get up again. And earth is going to change. Because of us. It's going to change for us. Meaning we're going to have a more enjoyable time on the earth, but it's also, life is going to get better for everybody. It's because of us. Because life is going to change with the cycles to bring us back. Because everything is going to just get renewed. So life, existence, creation, to wrap it up. Put these people here from the most ancient of times. Or maybe they were always here. And things went downhill, they lost their way, they got conquered. And life, existence, will just continue to renew things. The moon renews, they say, every month. And the sun keeps doing its job to renew stuff after the winter is past. The sun comes, warms up the place again, and so that the grass is renewed, everything is renewed. So there is renewal in nature, and you don't think that the most ancient of peoples will ever be renewed in time again. That's because you were taught by someone who is not of your people. You must always believe in a renewal. No matter how bad it gets, always believe in a renewal. And you can do it when you turn your plate down to fast from the new knowledge that we've been given, to go back to the ancient things and to find out what made your people believe in the first place before they lost their way. What made them believe they could build and do all the great things that they did? You can do it again. We are people of word, not of weapons of mass destruction. We are people of word because word creates. It leads to creativity. It comes out of creativity itself. And because we are people of word, we investigate, we think, we create. But we come from a point of view of what is healthy, what tends to life. So that we want to rise again, not to destroy, but to rebuild the things that are filled with mystery, that made the earth a better place before we were taken down. That even modern people look at and wonder, how did they do it? And because they can't afford to give us the full credit, they say Anunnaki came from space and did it. Dig into your past again and find out, is this kind of stuff that I'm taught now in the Bible the truth? Or was there a little bit more? Were there people who lived before these people, spoken of as the main people in the Bible? Who was here before there was an Israelite kingdom? And why would a so-called creator make this very great people with a vast worldwide system that made them thrive all across the earth, with even pyramids in the Americas? But everywhere you go now, people are saying there are pyramids even in the Antarctica. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. So these people were thriving. What made them thrive if they were not worshiping God the way you say we need to worship God and keep these 613 laws? If they didn't keep these 613, why did they thrive? And why is it such a regret that they died? Why is it that historians and archaeologists and so on look back into the past of these people when they were nothing? They spend more time investigating the past of these people who were Africans than they spend investigating the Israelites. Because the Israelite history is so condensed, so little, so small. But the Africans went everywhere, voluminous in their exploits and their history. They are the ones being investigated more than ever. And God ignores them while archaeologists and historians can't get enough of them. God ignores them and reaches for the Israelite. That is strange.